of you have presented. So it's not really like a teaching case. So it's about kind of a case study in terms of for like a journal kind of study thing. Let me tell you some background about how it all came about. So, in general, Zakat is a topic very close to my heart, and I sometimes, nowadays I decided that I want to do research with something I truly believe in, truly I feel, good about, So that's why I was actually doing some Zakat activities for quite some time, personally, and also some research studies also with the Zakat. But how did this case study kind of things came about? It was actually one of my friend, Professor Said Al-Banna, who was actually the director until last year of this center who organized it. And the connection I have with him is I also worked in Uttara University for the last 10 years. Not the last 10 years, 10 years, and then I left a few years ago. Then when I was doing some of these activities in Bangladesh, and I sometimes sharing my social media network, so he sent me some message that, why don't you put together a case study so that, it also helps other people to see what you're doing and maybe they can do something better, So that's how I kind of went into this case study. Now, saying that, I have to admit, when he told me that, I had no idea how to put together a case study, and I was doing a traditional research kind of thing. Then he gave me some direction, and with some exploring, alhamdulillah, I learned a few things, how to put together. So that's the background about this one. So what did I do here? My title, you can see the Islam and Philanthropy, the case of informal institutionalized approach to Zakat as a tool for home improvement in Bangladesh. So my name is Ishrat Hossain. I am working in School of Business in Uttara University, and my co-author, Mostafizur Rahman, who is in North University, also in Bangladesh. So, okay, so let's get into some details. So the context is the poverty and religion. Still, in the world, about 84% of the people show their affiliation to some kind of religion. At the same time, there are a lot of people, as we know, poverty is all over the world. So clearly there seems to be some overlap or some intersection between religion and poverty. So that means religion may be able to play some role in alleviation of the poverty. And one of the striking thing is nearly 50% of the poor in the world actually reside in Muslim majority countries. So that means Islam should be able to do something about it, or should play a role. Now coming to Bangladesh, we have about 91% of the population who are Muslims. And about 68% of the population lives in rural areas where actually poverty is even more prevalent. So in general, the poverty rates in Bangladesh are quite high, even though we have had some progress in recent years. But still, even compared to some regional neighbors, the poverty is not doing as good as we should have done. Now, if we now put our attention to Islamic philanthropy, there are two types of Islamic philanthropy. One of them is obligatory one, like Zakat, and another one is the voluntary, the regular sadaqah and the interest-free loans. So all those things are there. So philanthropy plays a very big role in Islamic. It's encouraged highly. So let's come back to the obligatory on the Zakat, which we know that it's an obligatory one for every eligible Muslims who within some guideline. And there's an immense global potential. It is estimated by World Bank and Islamic Development Bank that about $500 million yearly Zakat fund can be generated every year, right? So that's huge, that's the huge fund. Historically, Zakat was mostly institutionalized, centrally done by the government, starting from the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ until the fall of Ottoman Empire. But unfortunately, over time, due to colonialism or due to leadership dispute and some other cultural, social reason, that central role of Zakat has diminished significantly. Now only a small fraction is formally managed by the central government authorities. Why? Because, as I said, a few of those reasons. Recently, or in recent time, the trust is not there on the central government official systems. Skepticism is there about their efficiency. So that means, collection and distribution have become very decentralized and informal. So we are not really able to do the systemic impact at a broad national level. So let me use housing as an example, how this zakat can be used to deal with many of the poverty issues. Housing recognized as a fundamental physiological need by Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It is also considered a human right by almost, internationally by every agencies. And housing actually directly or indirectly aligned to SDGs, and more direct alignment to SDGs 1, 3, 4, and 11, which is poverty, health, education, and like cities, sustainable cities. Bangladesh housing crisis even more acute compared to other countries, globally. There's an estimate that housing deficit is about 6 million units in 2019. And the reasons of this crisis, well, high population growth, social inequity, challenging natural environment with a lot of floods, a lot of cyclone and all those things, and widespread public corruption in planning and execution. So where is the connection? Zakat, as we know, is one of the targets is to reduce poverty, to take care of poor people, needy people. So Islam allows zakat money to be used to provide shelter or home for the needy within a guideline. Right, as long as the ownership is transferred to the recipients. So because of the absence of formal institutions, I want to present, some informal initiative, like, what I call it 4H initiative. It's just the name, the people who do it. What they do, they pull the zakat contributions from a close circle of family and friends. Instead of doing individually, one at a time, few of those close circles. So it's not a huge fund, a small fund, but some of the close family, they all pull together the funds. Then what they do, they provide assistance to some people around to make their housing, to fulfill their housing needs. And over 10, 12 years, they have approximately conducted or put together 30 of these projects. So what is their mechanism? Very simple mechanism. When the request comes from the vicinity of the people who are involved in this initiative, then they go through some vetting with informal interview, personal visits to their needs. Then they prioritize, because fund is a small fund, so that means they cannot take into account all of the possible requests. So they prioritize based on most vulnerable people, like the widows, the old people, the people with disabilities, so they are prioritized. And then there is a collaborative model. The collaboration comes from, they try to include the people, the recipients themselves, because they don't have the funds sometimes, they don't have the money, but they actually physically can work also. So that gives them some kind of personal involvement also. So they are also involved. And then there's the oversight. They have a very small team, very dedicated team. They go there, they actually supervise the construction. They go through the whole process. Instead of just giving them the money and you do it, no, they actually go and do their personal oversight. So that gives them more efficiency and effectiveness. So let me just present two cases out of 30 or more than 30 possible one. One of the cases which was done in 2022 and 23, which was that there's a house there, but the house was kind of falling apart, over 30, 40 years old house. And the 4H did, they rebuilt the old house. So they completely tear apart the old house and then they rebuild it. 100% of the fund, which is only about $1,500, was given by the 4H. And it was a family with disability. The main, you can see his picture here, right? So this was the house at the end which was built. and he was actually quite an old person, disabled, and he has a daughter living with him, and the daughter's husband also has some disabilities. So the multiple member in the family has disabilities, so they were mostly begging because of their situation, and there was some irregular income through different means. So that was one of the cases done in 2022-23. Then the more recent one they did was in 2024, which was a completely new home in the person's ancestral land. There was nothing there, so it was a complete. So the person actually was living with some relatives in their balcony kind of thing. Very, very poor. They personally visited the place, and it was a very, very low level and very difficult environment, and that's what they're living. So in this case, 60% of the fund was provided by the 4-H, about $1,200 of the whole cost of the house. And the lady who received it, she was actually visually impaired, and she was actually deserted by her husband a long time ago, and she was living with a son who also had a physical disability. So it was a very, very distressed family. And they didn't have any income, so they were living on the family support of some of the brothers, sisters, and the well-wishers around them. So that's how the case 2 was conducted. And there were other cases. Sometimes 4-H provided 100%, sometimes they did 20% with some renovation. So different cases needed different kind of support. So what are the challenges and the prospects? So what we are trying to show here in this study, that Islamic ethos, Islamic philanthropy actually can play a strong role, right? It's a strong role in development sector to take care of some of the poverty issues. They should be integrated along with other instruments or other way of taking care of those things. What we also see here, that informal, well-managed, faith-based initiatives can achieve significant social welfare impact at the micro level, even in the absence of credible national central institutions. But saying all those things, doing all those things, they still have limitation. They cannot do very big projects, right? So still we need to work on rebuilding formal institutional trust to mobilize the large Zakat funds to achieve big macro effect. Yes, it's good to have those micro effect, but we cannot forget the macro effect. So still we need to go back to the formal institutions and with something, the government, something, the people need to think about seriously. To do that, we can learn from the informal models, such as these 4-H models, emphasis on community involvement to set up credible official organizations or entities. So that is the challenge that they need to think about. It's a worldwide thing, not only in Bangladesh, it's a worldwide thing, how this massive potential Zakat fund can be used to really take care of big issues, not only small micro issues. But until we have it, let us not wait. At least let us use this micro one, pull even at a smaller level, let's pull them together and try to do something. Because if you do it individually, there is a limitation what you can do. You can probably take care of one person at a small level. But at least if you pull some of these local, regional funds, at least there are some potential to do a little bit bigger stuff. But at the end, we need to go back to these central kind of institutions to take care of bigger issues. Thank you.